I'm Jake Hounds, and this is 1,000 Words or Less. Episode 16, The Tyranny of the Machines. At some point this summer, our small city decided that it was time to leap into the 21st century by automating traffic enforcement around town, specifically in high-impact community zones near schools. The speed limit is already low, 40 kilometers an hour, which translates into almost 25 miles per hour, but it always feels slower. Prior to the installation of the cameras, enforcement was non-existent, leading me and my fellow townies to never drive that slow, or almost never. I'd never observed much danger on these roads before. It's a small town with regular neighborhood traffic. There hadn't been a slew of accidents or pedestrians being struck in these zones. In fact, I'd never even noticed a speeding problem. I mean, other than the reasonably over-the-limit speeding that me and everyone else was doing. There were accepted common boundaries that, while outside the legal limit, were not outside of common sense. To make matters more skewed, the school zone speed limit in most situations around town are only when school is in session, so Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. However, in these high-impact community zones, day or time doesn't matter. Accordingly, enforcement suggests that the risk needs to be mitigated equally on a Wednesday at 2:30 p.m. as much as a Sunday at 4 a.m. This begs the question, is this automated enforcement meant to change driving behavior, to make our roads safer? Or is it meant to capitalize on our lazy memories of the bygone days of small-town life? You may have guessed that this preamble is leading up to a reveal where I get a speeding ticket. And you're right. But not only did I get a speeding ticket, but on a specific Saturday in September, I was ticketed 3 times for the same violation on a weekend in a school zone. Furthermore, the tickets were mailed from another city through the government system, and in some cases, they were delayed by several weeks, and almost a month for one. This lag in enforcement led my wife and I to rack up 6 tickets in total for fines upwards of $500. That would have never happened if I'd been pulled over by an officer. I would have changed my behavior instantly. I would have told my wife that they're now enforcing the speed limit in these community zones, so we better watch how fast we go from now on. To put this into context, in the whole time I've lived here, which now borders on 20 years, I had previously received 1 speeding ticket where I didn't realize I was in a 60-kilometer zone and instead was driving like it was an 80-kilometer zone. In other words, I was driving 90 kilometers an hour in a 60 zone, which is significant. I was coming back from a fall fair in the country with my kids when I was pulled over. The officer was cordial. I explained to the kids the nuances of the Highway Traffic Act, and I politely told the officer that I hadn't realized the speed had changed, and that it was my error and it wouldn't happen again. What did the officer do? He lowered the fine. Instead of losing points, there are traffic infraction demerits where I live, and paying a couple of $100, my fine was reduced to around $75 with 0 demerits. Since that time, I've been extra vigilant on that section of highway, now aware that the speed limit is lower for a small stretch. But there's no reasoning with a machine. It doesn't empathize with you. It simply follows commands. In our town, those commands are, if you're over the speed limit, you get a fine. And because it's a community safety zone, those fines are double what you would expect this minor infraction to cost. Now, when I pick up my kids from school, I crawl past the camera a good 10 kilometers under the posted speed. I'm trolling the camera, and if it could take a picture of my slow rolling, it would notice the bird has been flipped. Of course, it doesn't take pictures of angry drivers following the rules, but only those whose momentary lapse of awareness caused them to exceed the limit. Just past the camera location, I turn around on a U-shaped crescent where the speed limit is 50 kilometers an hour, and I make a point of driving really fast around those tight corners to prove a point to my daughter about driving danger, and again to flip my imaginary middle finger to the camera that cannot see me at all. When I think of these cameras and the drooling faces of the city councilors as they ogle the massive budgetary boons their tyrannous tools have bestowed upon them, I think of other tyrants, like Big Brother from 1984, or the eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg on the billboard in The Great Gatsby, or the Lord of Machine Oppression himself, Darth Vader? How did our school safety zone become an autocratic pillar of tyranny, when only a short while ago we lived in a quiet and thoroughly unmodern corner of the world? When I first moved here, the locals never even locked their front doors at night. As we enter the age of spiritual machines, where artificial intelligence promises to make us smarter, help us work faster, and eventually eliminate the need for us to work at all, we might be putting too much faith in these systems. After all, most supervillains in fiction start out as heroes, championing the every person, only to forgo their humanity as their evil genius succumbs to their own greed and lust for power. Our human side wants to be treated humanely by other humans. That's our strength, and we're fools to expect our machines to emulate the human heart. This has been 1,000 Words or Less. I'm Jake Hounds. Thanks for listening. 1,000 Words or Less is 100% created by flawed natural human intelligence. Please subscribe, rate, and share this podcast. I'm interested in your feedback. You can follow me on X Twitter @HoundsJake, Instagram threads @JakeHounds, or email me contact@jakehounds.com.